to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin.
Welcome, and settle in with Deep Sleep Stories, where the night is soft and unhurried, and your thoughts are free to loosen their grip. You are here to rest, and you don't need to do anything else now. In a little while, you'll drift into a dreamy tale about sailing with petals in the wind, gliding over quiet waters as the world becomes gentle and calm. Before the story begins, allow your body to find a comfortable place. Let your shoulders drop, as if a warm blanket has been placed there. Let your jaw relax. Let your forehead smooth out, like still water after the tiniest ripple fades. Notice the air as it moves in and out of you. A slow breath in, cool and clean, and a slow breath out, long and easy. If you like, imagine the exhale carrying away the day's noise, setting it down somewhere far from this room, somewhere it can't reach you. Listen for the quiet beneath everything. Even if there are small sounds around you, there is a deeper hush underneath them, like the steady calm at the bottom of a lake. Let that hush welcome you. With each breath, your attention can soften. You don't have to chase any thought. You don't have to finish anything. You can simply be here, letting comfort gather around you. Picture a place where night is kind, where the air smells faintly of rain-washed leaves and moonlit blossoms. The world is dim in the best way, like a lantern turned low. The ground is cool beneath bare feet, and the breeze is gentle enough to feel like a slow sigh. Breathe again, and let the image become a doorway. Now, without effort, the story can begin, and you can simply follow it, like a feather following the wind. In a valley hidden between rounded hills, there was a lake that rarely appeared on maps. It was not because the lake was secret exactly, but because it preferred to be found by the unhurried. Paths wandered toward it in a lazy way, as if they were daydreaming. Trees leaned over the trail, offering shade in the softest green hush. Wild grasses swayed in the clearings, bowing and rising again, bowing and rising again, like the slow breathing of the land. Those who reached the lake often felt they had arrived somewhere that had been waiting for them for a very long time. Night, it held the moon as if it were a knight. It held the moon as if it were a silver coin resting on dark felt, and held the stars as if they were tiny lanterns floating beneath the surface. Were small and luminous, like bits of moonlight torn into delicate shapes. Some were creamy white, some blushed with pink, some the faintest gold. They fell in slow drifts, turning the ground into a quiet carpet, and the breeze carried them in little spirals that made no sound at all. On one especially tranquil evening, when the sun had slipped away and left behind a gentle glow, a traveler came down the wandering path. The traveler had no great burden, and no urgent destination. The traveler had walked all day through forests that smelled of pine and through meadows that smelled of clover. The day had been long but not heavy, and now with the lake opening up ahead like a calm promise, the traveler's steps slowed even further, as if the body itself recognized a place of rest. A small satchel hung at the traveler's side. It held simple things: a bit of bread wrapped in cloth, a smooth stone found in a stream, a folded note that had been carried for a while, and a tiny jar filled with honey that caught the last light like amber. The traveler paused at the edge of the orchard, where the first petals lay scattered like soft confetti. The air here tasted different, cooler, sweeter, touched with blossom and water and evening moss. The traveler breathed in, and the breath seemed to go all the way down into the chest, loosening something that had tightened without being noticed. There were no other people in sight. Yet the place did not feel empty. It felt companionable, as if the trees and the lake and the wind were quietly aware. The traveler stepped closer to the water. A ribbon of mist rested on the surface, sliding slowly as if it were thinking. A few fireflies blinked in the reeds, their lights gentle and uninsistent. Somewhere in the orchard, a night bird made a soft call only once, then fell silent again, as if it too remembered that silence was precious. One landed on the traveler's sleeve, so light it seemed more imagined than real. Another settled in the traveler's hair. The traveler didn't brush them away. They felt like a small blessing. As the traveler watched the lake, something curious became noticeable. Petals weren't only falling onto the ground. Many were landing on the water and staying there, floating. They gathered in soft clusters, forming little islands of color that shifted with the faint current. Some petals drifted close to the shore, nudged by the breeze, and arranged themselves as if they had a purpose. The traveler leaned forward slightly, eyes following one of these clusters. It wasn't random, not entirely. The petals were collecting into a gentle curve, like the outline of a small boat. The traveler blinked, then smiled slowly, not with surprise exactly, but with recognition. Some places in the world like to make small invitations. This lake, it seemed, was offering one. Without any hurry, the traveler stood and moved closer to the water's edge. The air cooled a little more, and the first stars brightened above the trees. The traveler crouched and reached out, palm open. A cluster of petals drifted toward the hand, as if drawn by warmth. They gathered against the traveler's fingers and did not fall apart. They clung lightly like downy feathers, yet held together with a quiet certainty. The traveler gathered more petals, carefully, respectfully, not grabbing, but letting them come. Each handful seemed to find its place naturally, folding and layering, shaping itself into something that made sense. Soon, a small vessel had formed at the shore, a boat made of petals, layered and overlapping like the scales of a gentle fish, or like the pages of a book made for dreaming. The boat was no bigger than a cradle, but it looked sturdy in its own soft way. The edges curved upward like the cup of a flower, The traveler watched it, heart calm, breathing slow. Then the boat shifted slightly, as if eager. A final sprinkle of petals drifted down from the branches and landed in the center, rising up into a slender mast. It wasn't wood or reed, but something lighter, something woven from pale stems and silver thread. At the top, a tiny knot of light appeared, like a star deciding to rest there. And then the sail unfurled. It was made of petals, too, translucent and luminous, stitched together by the careful patience of the wind. The sail lifted, caught the faintest breeze, and gave a tiny, pleased flutter. The traveler's shoulders softened even more. There was nothing to figure out, nothing to force. The invitation was clear. The traveler stepped into the pedal boat. It should have tipped, should have soaked and dissolved, should have been impossible, but it held, buoyant and steady, rising and falling with the breathing of the lake. The petals beneath the traveler's feet were cool and silky, like smooth leaves after rain. The traveler sat, settling into the small cradle of the boat. The water lapped at the sides with a sound like quiet applause. The sail trembled once, and then the boat began to move. Not fast, not sudden. It drifted away from the shore as gently as a thought, drifting toward sleep. The orchard receded, its blossoms becoming a soft blur of pale light beneath dark branches. The traveler looked back once and saw petals continuing to fall, a slow, constant shower, as if the trees were waving. The lake opened wide, the mist thickened, but not in a way that obscured. It softened the world, rounding its edges, making everything feel like it belonged to a dream. The pedal boat sailed on. The breeze was almost invisible, but it had direction. It brushed past the traveler's cheeks, cool and kind. It carried the scent of water plants and distant stones, warmed by daylight. It carried the faint sweetness of blossoms, as if the orchard's perfume could follow wherever the traveler went. Above, the sky was deep and clear. Stars were scattered generously, and the moon hung slightly to one side, watching with patient curiosity. The traveler let the hands rest on the boat's sides, fingers grazing petals that held their shape like a whisper held steady. The traveler's breath matched the motion of the lake, slow in, slow out, while the boat glided forward with the confidence of something guided. Ahead, a soft glow appeared in the mist. At first, it looked like fog catching moonlight, but as the boat neared, the glow gathered into a more distinct shape, a ring of lilies floating in a wide circle, their leaves dark and glossy, their blooms pale and open, as if they were listening to the night. The boat slipped toward the ring as though it belonged there. Within the circle, the water was stiller, like a bowl holding calm. The traveler felt the boat settle into that stillness, the sail loosening slightly, the breeze quieting, as if the wind itself had paused out of respect. In the center of the lily ring, something rose from the water, slowly, smoothly. It was not a creature and not a stone. It was a small platform, flat and broad, made of driftwood and woven reeds, covered with petals that glimmered faintly, as if they had gathered light and were keeping it safe. On the platform stood a lantern. It was not lit by flame. Instead, it held a tiny swirl of moonlight, captured and turning lazily like a sleeping comet. The lantern's glass was clear, and the light inside moved as if it were breathing. The traveler watched in quiet wonder, not needing to name what was happening. Some things were better when left as they were, beautiful and unexplained. The pedal boat drifted close enough for the traveler to reach out. The traveler touched the lantern gently, and the moonlight inside brightened for a moment, not glaring, but warming, like a friend smiling in the dark. At the lantern's base was a small compartment, and within it lay a folded piece of paper, dry and crisp, despite the lake air. The traveler opened it carefully. There were no instructions written in ink. There were no words at all. Instead, the paper was made of pressed petals, and its surface held a faint pattern like a map traced in scent rather than lines. When the traveler breathed in, a soft understanding drifted in with the fragrance. It wasn't information, it was a feeling, a sense of where the wind wished to go. The traveler smiled again, eyelids a little heavier now, as if the lake were sharing its calm. The traveler placed the petal map back in the lantern. The lantern's moonlight swirled once, as if satisfied, and the platform began to sink slowly back into the water. The lilies around it remained open and serene, continuing their silent circle. The pedal boat drifted out of the ring, and the breeze returned, gentle and steady. The sail lifted again, catching the wind's quiet intention. On the lake, the mist shifted into soft corridors, and the boat followed one of them as if following a path made of air. Soon the traveler noticed that the water was changing. It grew darker beneath the boat, not in a troubling way, but in a deepening way, like velvet layered over velvet. And then flickers of light appeared below the surface. At first there were only a few, like small sparks. Then there were many, drifting and twinkling, as if the lake had become a sky of its own. The traveler leaned slightly over the boat's edge, peering down. Beneath the water, a garden of glowing plants swayed. Their stems were long and fine, their leaves like ribbons. They gave off soft light, blues and greens and pale gold, shimmering with the motion of the current. Fish moved through the glow like shadows, wearing starlight, slow and unafraid. The traveler watched, breathing slow, letting the eyes soften, letting the mind soften with them. As the boat sailed onward, the glowing garden rose closer to the surface. The light below reflected upward, illuminating the mist from beneath. The traveler was sailing through a world lit by both sky and water, a gentle in-between place where everything felt possible and quiet. The breeze sighed, petals began to appear again. Though the orchard was far behind now, these petals came from somewhere else. They drifted in from the mist, tumbling and turning, catching the light from below and the moon above. Some fell into the boat, landing softly around the traveler's feet. Others floated beside the boat, keeping pace as if they were companions. The traveler reached out, letting a petal land on a fingertip. It was cool and smooth, and it carried a faint hum, like a distant lullaby. The traveler held the petal for a moment and then released it. It drifted away, unhurried, and the traveler watched it go until it blended into the glowing water. The boat sailed on. The lake widened and the mist thinned. In the distance, dark shapes rose up. Small islands, low and rounded, dotted with trees that looked like silhouettes cut from night. The wind guided the boat toward one of these islands, where a narrow beach curved like a crescent moon. The boat approached without any splash, the petals along its sides brushing the water as lightly as eyelashes. When the boat touched the sand, it stopped. The traveler stepped out. The sand was cool and fine, and it held the day's warmth deep down, offering comfort to bare feet. The island smelled of damp earth and cedar. Somewhere, a small stream whispered through stones, its voice low and steady. The traveler walked slowly inland, following the sound. The trees here were old and patient. Their trunks were thick, their branches high, their leaves dark and glossy. The moonlight filtered through them in soft layers, making patterns on the ground that shifted as the breeze moved. The stream appeared, narrow and clear, winding through a shallow bed of smooth stones. The water was so clean, it looked like it was made of glass. Along its edges grew tiny flowers that glowed faintly, like stars that had chosen to settle into the earth. The traveler knelt beside the stream and dipped fingers into the water. It was cool but not cold, and it seemed to carry a soothing steadiness. The traveler brought damp fingers to the forehead, then to the back of the neck. A small ritual of comfort. As the traveler listened, the stream's whisper began to feel like more than sound. It became a kind of guidance, a reminder that everything could move without rushing, that everything could arrive without pushing. Nearby, half hidden among roots, there was a small stone bench covered in moss. The traveler sat there for a little while, letting the body rest. The island held the traveler gently, as if it were a hand supporting a drowsy head. Above the trees, the sky was wide. The stars were crisp here, and the moon's light seemed softer, as if it had been warmed by passing through leaves. The traveler's eyes grew heavier, but the wind was still calling very gently, and the pedal boat was waiting at the shore. After a time, when the traveler felt ready, when the breath felt deep and loose, the traveler stood and walked back through the trees. The stream's whisper faded behind, but its calm remained, carried within like a steady rhythm. At the beach, the pedal boat floated where it had been left, rocking patiently in the shallow water. More petals had gathered in it, as if the boat had been quietly decorating itself. During the traveler's absence, the traveler stepped in again, settled into the cradle, and the sail lifted with a soft flutter. The boat drifted away from the island, and the beach became a pale curve in the distance. Then a suggestion, then nothing at all. Now the lake's surface was smoother than before, as if it had grown sleepier. The mist returned, thin and silky, wrapping around the boat like a shawl. The traveler watched the sail, watched how it responded to the smallest shift in air. There was something mesmerizing in the way petals could become a vessel, in the way softness could hold and carry. As the boat sailed, the traveler noticed the wind changing. It became warmer, not by much, just enough to feel like breath against skin. And it brought a new scent. Something like jasmine, something like rain on stone, something like a distant fireplace that had long since burned down and left only warmth. The mist ahead glowed faintly, and the traveler sensed they were nearing another place. Slowly, the boat emerged into a wide open stretch of water where the mist lifted and spread out like a veil being gently drawn back. In the center of the lake, something was floating. It looked at first like a small pavilion, an open structure with a curved roof, resting on a raft of woven reeds. Its roof was covered in petals that shimmered softly, and thin strands of light hung from the edges like beads of dew. The boat glided toward it. As it approached, the traveler saw that the pavilion was empty, yet welcoming. Pillows lay in neat clusters, covered in pale fabric that caught the moonlight. A low table sat in the middle, and on it rested a bowl filled with petals that seemed to glow from within. The wind slowed, and the boat came to a gentle stop alongside the pavilion's raft. The traveler stepped onto the woven reeds, surprised by how steady they felt underfoot. The pavilion's floor was springy and warm like a bed of dried grass in late summer. The traveler sat among the pillows. Above, the roof's petals shifted slightly. Above, the roof's petals shifted slightly as the breeze moved, making a faint, soothing rustle, like distant rain, like pages turning in a quiet library, like the world whispering itself to sleep. The bowl of glowing petals sat on the low table, and the traveler reached toward it. The petals inside were different from those on the trees. They were larger, edged with faint gold, and they pulsed with gentle light. When the traveler lifted one, it felt impossibly light, as if it were made of a sigh. The traveler held it close and breathed in. A calm warmth spread through the chest, not sudden, not intense, just steady, as if the petal's glow had become an inner lantern. The traveler placed the petal back in the bowl, and the light within the bowl seemed to deepen, as if grateful, waiting. The traveler poured, and awaiting. The traveler poured, and a fragrant steam rose, herbal, sweet, comforting. The tea tasted like chamomile and honey, and something else that couldn't quite be named, something like peace. The traveler drank slowly, savoring warmth that moved through the body like a gentle tide. Outside, the pedal boat rocked softly against the pavilion's raft. The sail fluttered in a lazy way, not eager now, as if it, too, was resting. The traveler leaned back into the pillows and looked up. Through the open sides of the pavilion, the traveler could see the lake and the sky at the same time. The stars were steady. The moon was calm. The lake reflected them all, doubling the quiet beauty, as if the world was offering more than enough. And then, very softly, music began. Not from an instrument and not from any visible source. It was more like the lake itself was humming. The sound was low and soothing, a gentle vibration that seemed to match the traveler's heartbeat. It rose and fell with the movement of water, weaving with the rustle of petals overhead. The traveler listened, and the mind grew even quieter. The pavilion drifted slightly, not far, just a slow shift, a subtle repositioning as the current moved. The traveler didn't resist. There was nothing to hold on to, and nothing needed holding. Eventually, the traveler sat up again and looked toward the pedal boat. The boat waited, patient and ready, like a companion that never demanded, only offered. The traveler stood, stepped back into the boat, and settled in. The sail lifted once more, catching a breeze that had turned cooler again. As if the night was deepening, the pavilion drifted away behind, becoming a soft shape in the distance, then a faint glow, then part of the mist. The boat sailed onward, guided by the wind's gentle hand. The traveler's eyelids were heavier now, blinking slower. The body felt warm and loose, as if wrapped in invisible blankets. The thoughts, if they came at all, came like slow clouds drifting across a wide sky. The lake began to change again. The water ahead looked different, silkier, darker, and very smooth, like ink resting in a bowl. The boat entered this darker stretch, and the sails seemed to glow faintly, the petals catching moonlight and holding it. The mist here was thinner, and the air felt still, as if the world had paused to listen. In the distance, a single point of light appeared near the water's surface. It blinked, then it blinked again. The traveler watched, calm, curious, in a sleepy way. As the boat drifted closer, more lights appeared, little points floating just above the water. They gathered into a loose trail, each one pulsing softly. Fireflies, perhaps, or something like them. They moved slowly, forming a path that curved across the lake like a constellation laid down gently. The boat followed the path. The lights led toward a place where the lake narrowed, turning into a wide river that flowed between tall grasses. The grasses swayed in the breeze, their tops brushing each other with a soft, shushing sound. The boat entered the river, and the current began to carry it. It was a slow current, a sleepy one, as if even the water was winding down. The river's banks were lined with flowers that opened at night, their petals pale and luminous. Their scent was rich but not overwhelming, drifting in soft waves that soothed rather than stirred. The traveler's head tilted slightly, chin lowering, posture relaxing. The lights continued to guide the boat. But the traveler didn't need to watch them closely anymore. The wind and the current were doing the work. The traveler could simply be carried. The river widened again, opening into a smaller lake, a quiet basin surrounded by gently sloping hills. The hills were covered in soft grasses that glimmered faintly as if dusted with starlight. At the center of this basin, the water was perfectly still. The lights hovered above it, then slowly rose, lifting into the air like a flock of tiny lanterns. They drifted upward and scattered into the sky, blending with the stars until it was hard to tell where the lake ended and the heavens began. The boat drifted into the very center of the basin and came to a stop. The sail loosened, folding slightly, as if it had finished its journey for the night. The petals along the boat's sides relaxed, their edges soft, their shimmer gentle. The traveler sat in the boat, held by still water and quiet air. The world felt very far away now, the world of doing, of rushing, of needing. Here there was only being, only drifting, only the slow, steady hush of night. The traveler looked up at the sky one last time. The moon seemed closer here, its light softer, like a hand resting on a shoulder. The stars blinked slowly, as if sleepy themselves. The air moved in the faintest breath, and petals began to fall again. Not from trees this time, but from the air itself, as if the night had blossoms hidden in its sleeves. They drifted down in a slow shower, landing on the lake, landing on the boat, landing on the traveler's hair and shoulders. They were cool and light, and they carried a feeling, safe, calm, tender. The traveler's eyes closed. The boat rocked once barely. The lake held everything quietly, like a cradle. Now the night begins to soften even more. The traveler remains in the pedal boat, floating in stillness, breathing slow, resting deeply. The sail folded and quiet, the water smooth and calm. The petals continue to fall, gently, gently. Each one lands like a lullaby. The hills around the basin are dark and kind. The sky above is wide and steady. The moon watches with a peaceful glow. The traveler's body grows heavier in the best way. Shoulders loose, hands relaxed. Breath warm and easy. Thoughts drifting farther apart, like clouds spreading out until they dissolve. The pedal boat rocks so slowly, it feels like a whispered rhythm. In and out. In and out. The lake's hush wraps around the traveler like a soft blanket. The air is cool, the world is safe, and as the petals gather, the boat becomes even more like a nest, soft and sheltered, floating on quiet water under a sleepy sky. Everything slows, everything settles. There is nothing to do now. Only rest, only drift, only sleep. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.